Okay, hello to our listeners. Thank you for tuning into this discussion on pulmonary fitness. My name is Amanda Holyk. I am a clinical exercise physiologist and a kinesiologist, as well as the founder of iMaster Health and our online pulmonary rehabilitation program. Joining me is Lee Fogle. He is a former tech entrepreneur who designed health software. In his spare time, he ran marathons. Lee did long distance ocean swimming and bicycle racing. Now, after getting COVID in 2020, Lee later contracted pneumonia and was diagnosed with advanced pulmonary fibrosis with only 30% remaining lung function. This led to him being placed on supplemental oxygen, and he became increasingly sedentary, with his overall health declining significantly over the following 12 months. So Lee began pulmonary rehabilitation in late 2021, and he began to gradually rebuild his strength and stamina. Now, his journey back to health and an active lifestyle was so remarkable that his physician suggested that he write a book on his methods that he used in his recovery. Now, Lee's book, A Matter of Life and Breath, was published in 2023, and it became an immediate Amazon bestseller in the health category. Today, Lee is an ambassador for the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation, and he also leads support groups for lung disease patients. So Lee manages an organization of global support groups that are led by volunteers like himself, and they meet weekly with patients in several countries. So Lee, welcome. It is an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Amanda. Really great to be here and actually see you live. I've watched your videos, your instructional videos so many times. You know, it's nice to see you're really a live person. You're not an AI. Those videos have helped me. So it's great to be here in person with you today. Thanks for that.
Oh, well, I'm glad to know that I can offer some help even when I'm not there. So
Yeah.
those videos, that's exactly my mission. So thank you for that, Lee. But to start off, Lee, you are an incredible and inspiring story. So you went from participating in Ironman races to then basically being housebound with 30% lung function. And now you are continuing to live and promote an active lifestyle despite being on supplemental oxygen. Can you walk us through what that emotional process was like during this journey, and how did you navigate that?
Well, Amanda, I didn't navigate it very well at first. I navigated it from a recliner with a remote control for the TV in my hand for about 11 months. So after I got really sick and they went to the emergency room a couple of times, and then the doctors said, they looked at the x-rays and said, something you don't want to hear. They said, your lungs are a mess. And then they did CT scans and they gave me the diagnosis of what they called end stage pulmonary fibrosis. Holy cow! You know, what a loaded ton of bricks to get hit with from where I had been. And it threw me into an abyss of darkness. After the diagnosis, I was given an oxygen prescription. They told me my life would be better with that, the oxygen. And a few days later, I got home. I mean, I was home, and the delivery person showed up and gave me 5 minutes of instruction on how to connect the oxygen, and I was kind of on my own after that. There was no warning of pulmonary fibrosis, rehabilitation, no cautionary tale things about overall lifestyle, things like that. But so I had a new vision. Now I didn't have a vision of myself as a healthy entrepreneur, 63 years old, and starting a new company, which is what I was doing at that time. My vision was my life is over. I began to plan my funeral. I mean, I literally did. Was arranging for potential adoption of my dogs, a few little small dogs. I love them. They've been with me 15 and 17 years. And so I'm doing all those sorts of things. It was a black hole of depression I went into. I saw myself as that old guy with the green oxygen tank pushing that cart around, and no longer as a vibrant, healthy adult endurance athlete. So that was about 11 months that I dealt with that. So I didn't navigate it well at first.
And what made you get out of that spot after that 11 months?
Well, my physician never actually recommended pulmonary rehabilitation. But I did my own research, after I got over the Google research diagnosis that said you've got 3 to 5 years to live, which is not necessarily, it's not true. It's just not true because most people can live much longer than that and be much more active. So that's pretty bad. But after I got over that, I started to research, what could I do? Couldn't reverse lung function. We have 450 million alveoli in a person's lungs, and I was missing 2/3 of mine. They were scarred and not usable. So I had a third of those left. So what could I do with the third I have? So I did a lot of research on the power of improving muscle fitness in order to more efficiently utilize oxygen. Strong muscles utilize oxygen more efficiently and enable us to do things. I had gotten to the point, Amanda, I couldn't walk 50 steps, even with a little oxygen concentrator. And they first gave me a portable oxygen concentrator, the little machines there. But that was like a toy for me. My lungs were so bad that it couldn't supply enough air for me. I needed an oxygen tank. And even with an oxygen tank, I'd walk 50 steps and have to stop and rest. And so when it came to in my research, I saw that I needed pulmonary rehabilitation. There was an option for me was not to go travel to a place, and that was what I had to do in Sarasota, Florida. Travel to some place to do that, and that's 10 miles away. That's like a major journey when you're full bound and on oxygen. So that wasn't an option. So I found a person who's an athletic trainer. She was excellent trainer for people who were rehabilitating from injuries and that sort of thing. And I paid her to come to my home and help me. And so she would take me down we had to go down the 4 flights of stairs because I couldn't take the elevator. Oxygen, hypoxia had made me so sensitized to oxygen and my need for it that I was claustrophobic. I couldn't take the elevator. So she would help me. There's this athletic, healthy young woman, and me used to be an athletic guy, and she's helping me to walk down 4 flights of stairs to our gym at our condo complex. And I'd get on the bike and I'd ride about 2 minutes. Okay. And this little oxygen concentrator was wheezing, trying to give me some little puffs of air. And it was useless. And we didn't know that. I didn't understand that. So nobody was really, I did have a pulse oximeter, and we saw my oxygen precipitously dropping into the low 80s, high 70s, things like that. So I would panic and not know what to do. So I didn't have a true pulmonary rehabilitation person with me that understood what was going on and also understood what I could push, how hard I could push myself. So, but that got me started. Okay. And then I found an online pulmonary rehabilitation class at the time that had some exercises, sort of a 40-day challenge. Okay. Go do these things for 40 days. They weren't attended or supervised, but I had the ability because of my athletic training that I could follow a plan. And so I began to do that. And that was like, it snowballed. The more I did, the more I could do. The reverse had happened the year before. The less I did, the less I could do. And it just continued to spiral downward. Now, when I began to do more, I felt better each day. And I had a little more optimism, a little more hope each day. And it came from beginning to do an exercise program, setting a daily walking goal of getting 1,000 steps. I used to do 15 to 20,000 steps a day, some running, some walking. And I had to go for a goal of 1,000. I remember making 1,000 and 3,000, those sorts of things. So that's kind of how pulmonary rehabilitation began for me then.
Okay. And then with the online program, you said a 40-day exercise challenge. And with pulmonary rehab, one of the important parts is also understanding your condition. Was there any education involved with the program or breathing techniques that you learned to self-manage your condition?
No breathing techniques other than the basic, what was the thing? Smell the roses and blow out the candles, or smell the roses and cool the soup. That sort of a pursed lip breathing thing was there. and that's pretty common knowledge. But there were no and there was some information on oxygen use, things like that, but you had to find it. You had to really dig for it. And I'm a researcher, so I researched there and other places to find all that information. Over several years now, 4 years, I've consumed volumes of information about this disease. I go to medical conferences and speak to doctors, and I can talk to them about the disease because I understand it. But that comes from personal research, that sort of thing. Sustaining the benefits of that, was the problem there. After the 40-day period, then, how do you sustain the benefit?
Exactly. And that is one of the most important parts too, is that if you're not sustaining those benefits gained throughout a structured program, they're just going to diminish. And the research shows that within 6 to 12 months, you can be, I should say, back to stage 1. So how did you go about that? Did you create your own exercise program, or what was your process?
So yeah, and it's, you plateaued. I plateaued in the 40 days, and that was it. And it was like, well, it's got to be, if I got this far, I can do more. And so, important to find, the what is exercising, and you don't want to do it, and one of the things I've always known in my career in life is the why has to be bigger than the what. The why am I doing it has to be bigger than what I've got to do in order to attain it. Racing an Ironman and finishing it was the what. Was the why. I wanted to cross that finish line after 13 hours of racing. And the what was a grueling 38-week program of training 6 days a week. And applying that same principle to pulmonary rehabilitation, you've got to find out why you're doing it. What's your purpose? What's your purpose for living? And it wasn't like I crystallized this beautiful purpose for living suddenly, and it was easy. I just began to feel better, and I wasn't in it. I no longer saw myself as a dying old man, and I thought that I can do this. And so that now my purpose for exercise today is to live and not die prematurely or spend my remaining years in a weak and incapacitated state. I'll say that again, because my purpose today of exercise, I exercise every day of the week, some type of exercise, some days hard, very hard, and I don't want to do it always. But yesterday I did not want to do it, but I went out and did it. And it's like, once you start, it's almost like the same thing. The snowball going downhill that gathers momentum and speed. I can finish an exercise if I just get it started. But to live and not die prematurely, or spend my remaining years in a weak or incapacitated state. I volunteer with hospice, and I see so many folks. I'm with them in the last week or weeks of their life, and so many people in a hospital bed in their home or in a nursing home, and I see the ravaging effects of aging, and I don't see anyone dying in pulmonary fibrosis groups. I've known a lot of people who've died who are in my support groups, and I've known lots of folks in nursing homes who died, but I don't see anyone dying from exercising too much. I see people who have declined precipitously through nutrition and lack of exercise that have done that.
Absolutely. And Lee, I want to really touch on what you said is it's the why, not the what. And that can change. I think that is one of the most motivating things that we can tell ourselves, that every day when I wake up and I know I need to move my body somehow, focus on the why. Why am I doing that? Not being intimidated by the what. What type of exercise am I doing, or how am I moving my body? And as you mentioned, is that can change throughout the stages of your life. And it's very important to realize that, and it's okay for it to change. Our bodies are changing regardless if we have a chronic condition that we're living with. So I just wanted to point that out. That was incredible that you said that. I think that is that can be very inspiring for people. So thank you for that. And just going back to, you were mentioning the support group. So can you touch on a little bit what you guys are doing in the support group? I know you meet weekly with the members. They're from several different countries. What is that process like? What do you guys talk about? How do you support one another? And yeah, anything along those lines. And outside of the support group too, is that how do you feel after you attend one of those sessions?
Okay, so that was a major turning point for me. It's tough to be alone, and there's a lot of alone people out here with this disease, or they've got a doting, nurturing caregiver who is more worried than them about it. Okay, and here's a little uh, quote I like is that I want to be a warrior, not a worrier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when you're all alone, you become a worrier in many cases and you worry over everything. You know, what can I do? Pulmonary rehab helped me to not worry because it gave me a safe space in order to uh, uh, test my limits, to know what my blood oxygen level was, and know I wasn't going to die. I mean, there was a time early on where I thought if I walked outside of my house and walked, there was an incline to go back to into my building, slight incline, very slight, and I'd be walking my dogs and I'd look at that incline like it was climbing a mountain, and I would be
Mm-hmm.
worried. I would actually tie my dog's leashes to my waist. I got a special leash because I thought I may die out here, I may fall over, and I don't want my dogs to get out in traffic, you know, so I would anchor them on the sidewalk. I mean, that's reality
Mm-hmm.
of this disease, of the fear that comes with it. And so with that fear, you're all alone. I was totally alone. And so I found a group called Pulmonary Success Circle, started by a guy who's had this disease for 10 years, Bruce Anderson. And Bruce had just done it as a labor of love. It's not a company, it's not a revenue generating engine, it's nothing like that. It's just volunteers that come together. We've got a website, and Bruce has declined in his health, and he asked me to take it over. And we have 10 facilitators, volunteers who have pulmonary fibrosis, and we manage a group of about 60 patients with those 10 facilitators. The size group is 8 to 10 people, no more than 9 actually, include them, add the facilitator, and it's 10. And we meet weekly on Zoom. And in that call, what I found when I got into it, I had 3 nurses in that group who were retired nurses who had pulmonary fibrosis, and a couple of other folks. But we immediately, you know, were into what can we do about it. It's a very solution focused group. We don't sit around and whine and complain. Facebook, there's a lot of Facebook support groups out there, or that are just a place for people to complain and
Mm-hmm.
tell about how horrible things are. And they've got another doctor's appointment. Our groups are very positive. We support each other. We encourage each other. We learn from each other. We're our own trials and studies of different things that we're all trying different things. You know, some
Mm-hmm.
natural cures for inflammation, some natural cures for cough, things like that. So it just made a world of difference. And we know each other as friends, you know, as people. We look forward to that. So I then started managing a group of my own that I meet on Fridays with from Canada, from Spain, the U.S., and it's the highlight of our week. These people tell me all the time, we love each other. We're there for each other. One of our members had uh, uh, a serious decline and recently back in December, and she went in and got a lung transplant. And so now we've graduated her to our lung transplant support group. So we've got a support group in our group organization that has people who are either getting a lung transplant soon or they've already had one. So they learn from each other. And it's not like a lot of these support groups that some of the larger foundations have, where you show up maybe, and you don't talk, you just listen, or you may introduce yourself, but that's about the extent of it. We don't have, these are not lectures. These are conversations that we have, ordered, facilitated conversations that we have, and it's just vital. They're so powerful for our personal growth. And we got 8, 9 of those groups now in operation with about 60 patients, and we're growing. We just started a new caregiver support group because caregivers are sometimes more lost and more at a disadvantage because they don't know. They want to help their person, their partner, their loved one, but they don't know what to do to help them. So that
Mm-hmm.
this kind of connects them into a group. We've got a new one that's really going well.
Awesome. That is incredible. I think the biggest understanding is to navigate a condition with other people. And just as you said, being able to share stories, what worked, what didn't work, and to have somebody to lean on, because with a condition like pulmonary fibrosis, not that many people understand what is happening. So if you can get together with a group that are all living with a similar condition, you can go to somebody for help. And the caregiver support group is also just as important, because with any type of lung condition, whether it's pulmonary fibrosis or COPD or cystic fibrosis, the caregivers, your family, your friends, everybody is going to be impacted by that condition because they love that individual who is living with the condition, and they want to help them and they want to know more about the condition. That's what I've seen. I was actually in the caregiver support group. It was a couple
That's
of years
right.
ago, and it's
Yeah.
incredible to just see how much effort that partners and spouses are putting into helping each other, and not just their spouse that has the condition, but other people who are living with the condition. And actually, one thing I thought was incredible was there was an individual who had a lung transplant, and their healthcare team asked them to put together a group of around 6 of their family members or friends to be a part of the journey of the lung transplant. So pre and post transplant, this is what you need to look out for when you're with this individual. I think that is absolutely incredible, because that's how humans are supposed to be. We're supposed to look out for each other, help each other, and be there for that support. So I think it's incredible what you're doing. And I think it can bring up so many emotions, like positive emotions, motivating, keeping people accountable. So yeah, we'll link the support group below in the description. So if there's somebody who would like to join, you said you guys are growing, keeping the group small, so important, so that you're able to have that intimate discussion with others. So
Yeah.
that's awesome, Lee. Thank you. So one other thing that I really wanted to touch on was getting, so as you mentioned, like when you started that exercise training, you didn't formally go to a pulmonary rehab program because you weren't aware of what that was. Your physician or your healthcare provider didn't mention that to you. Now, I imagine that there are a lot of individuals in that exact same point, and they're wondering, how can they get started? Do you have any advice other than taking the route of hiring a personal trainer if you don't have that option, if it's not feasible for you? How would you say is the best way to get going? Is it as little as going for a walk, or maybe you need to start more simple areas, or monitoring your oxygen levels? What type of advice would you give to somebody?
If you're sitting there today and you are in your health has declined and your physical strength and ability has declined, and you're scared to go for a walk by yourself because you might be and you don't go to the gym, and you're just not exercising, and you're spending most of your time seated and at home and getting weaker, you got to look at starting a formal pulmonary rehabilitation plan, in my opinion. And that's what I like so much about the company you started, because you saw the need in this, and with iMasters Health. Okay, and is most people can't travel to a clinic and do this. It's just too much trouble. They're not going to do it. And also, one of the problems people have is they go once a week or twice a week, and they got a limited amount of Medicare insurance that they're allowed. Then it's over, and then they got to pay, and they don't want to pay that, or they just think twice a week's enough, and it's not. It's just not. Twice a week is not going to get it for us. And so, your website has lots of instructional videos and loads of information that's very well organized. I like that. I'm sure you'll post in the show notes on this site by iMasters Health. But you've also got multiple plans available, so people can even, there's some level of free. Everybody wants some level of free to try things out. So there's some levels of exercises that you graciously put out there for people that they can just try these out. But you also have plans available to help people uh, uh, stay motivated, stay active, and to do more than just the rehab. The rehab's over in a few months, and now you've got to maintain this level of fitness, like we talked about, or you're going to decline. So your program enables people to at different levels to get help like that, and it's, I mean, my God, I look at the cost of medicine. People are paying, they're not paying out of pocket. We're all paying it through our tax dollars in the U.S. And in Canada too. But it's medication costs are $15,000 a month for antifibrotics. $15,000 a month. Okay, and the cost of, and I don't take, by the way, I don't take any medication. I don't take anything for sleep. Anything, I take some whole food supplements, things like that, but no pharmaceutical medications. And but a cost of pulmonary fitness and maintaining it over some period of time is the cost of eating out once a month or eating out a couple of times a month. So it's a no-brainer to me to subscribe to some sort of service that can really help people. And you've got multiple levels of that available on your website that people can get it. And you use the technology we have available to us, the God-given technology of, I don't have to leave home. I can do this workout here 30 minutes from home. So those things, you'd ask me also, I don't want to belabor this point, but you'd ask me one time, what's my, how do I stay consistent? Talked about energy conservation and how do I pace myself?
Mm-hmm.
And so once I learned that first with pulmonary rehab, but it's like this. To me, if you, it's the old, very trite adage: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So my days are very, I mean, it's not. I'm not OCD. My days are very consistent, man. I know what I'm going to do. I don't wake up in the morning and wonder what I'm going to do. And I think that's very important for us. I'm going to give you a quick example rundown of what I think, what my day looks like and how that has led to my ability to do so much more than be so active. I start my day when I wake up in the morning. I start with meditation. Then I do every day. For the last 2 years, I've done this every day, a breathing exercise. Then a set of flexibility exercises. Here in my book is called the 5 Tibetan Rites. It's just a Qigong or a Tai Chi type routine, but stretches the whole body out, energizes you. Then I leash my dogs up and I go for a walk for an hour. Okay. Notice I haven't eaten yet. Okay. I've slept and I wake up and I haven't eaten anything. I've drank water. Okay. And I leash my dogs up. We walk about 2 miles in an hour. I return from that and then I break my fast. I don't eat every day for about 15 to 17 hours, intermittent fasting, because it allows my body to just, I feel better by doing that, not overeating. But I do come back and I have a whole food breakfast of coffee and oatmeal with sort of a carefully curated set of ingredients like that are for lung health, like cordyceps mushrooms and MTC oil and things like that. Then I do my hospice visits, my pulmonary support groups for a couple of hours. And then in the afternoon, around 2 o'clock, I do my exercise. And that's really important for people to get their own exercise program going. After, you can't just depend on you to keep them going. They've got to find, and it needs to be a variety. I do strength training using stretch cords at home. I go to the gym some days. Silver Sneakers is awesome in the U.S. And Silver Sneakers, you get a free membership. It's nice gyms. I do archery, shoot my arrows. I swim. I do water aerobics. I do paddleboarding. I was paddleboarding with my dog in his with his life jacket on the Manatee River the other day. I go biking. I go hiking. I do all those things, and I keep it interesting. Don't feel like you got to go to the gym today. And it's so much. It makes it fun and interesting for me. But I try to do hard stuff also. It's not just easy. At least a few days a week, do something really hard where my heart rate elevates. That's very adaptive response, and it's made me able to use less oxygen. I walk my 2 miles in the morning without oxygen, and I stay saturated. Okay. Now, 4 years ago, I couldn't walk with 6 liters of oxygen and stay saturated because my muscles were too weak. That's the value of that. Another thing that's important, for me, and I eat my main meal of the day in the afternoon around 4 o'clock. And that's the only real big meal I eat, normal meal I eat. And after that, I don't eat anything else because you'll disrupt sleep. And for us as pulmonary fibrosis patients, sleep is absolutely critical. So much new study on sleep and the power of sleep. And we want to go to bed with an empty digestive system. We don't want to be digesting food when we go to sleep. It's so important for cleansing the brain. And so I always relax, read something, don't watch TV before bedtime, never fall asleep watching TV, and meditate. And then I go to sleep, lights out at 9:30. And it's like a very structured day, and it's I love my time. It's like I enjoy each of these activities.
Yeah.
That's just a little snapshot of my rigidly structured day,
And it's incredible. Like, you are the definition of there is no limit when you're living with pulmonary fibrosis. All of those activities that you just mentioned, you are living life to the fullest. That is very inspiring to see and to hear. I really want to point out what you said is that consistency is the key. So if we're able to plan and structure our day, that's where we're going to have that energy conservation. And I think what we really need to point out too is that it's not going to be the first time that you plan a day is going to work out. You need to be able to tailor those activities in your day and see what works for you and what doesn't. Like, I imagine it took you a while to figure out what activities you can do without feeling that you're exhausted the next day or fatigued, and as well as your eating habits. So that's intermittent fasting isn't for everybody. You always have to speak to a healthcare provider if you're wondering about that. I just want to let our listeners know. But for you, if you found that that's what works and you stick to it, that is amazing. But you just need to be able to make those adjustments day by day. Another thing I want to talk about is on those days that you might not be feeling well, you might feel a little bit more short of breath, more exhausted. Do you give yourself that leniency of being able to take a rest day to do less, or what does that look like for you? Or you seem like the type of guy that will just push through. Can you speak a little bit on that? Because I know that can be either an inhibiting factor for some people or just intimidating.
It's a slippery slope. So don't do it 2 days in a row, But for me, that's my deal. I take days, like I think it was this past Sunday. I just didn't want to work out. I have goals though, and let me just say this, one of the most motivating factors is I measure everything. And look, the cost of a fitness tracker, it measures your oxygen saturation, measures your step count, your heart rate, and your sleeping, is like, it's a no-brainer to me. Because when we measure all that, it does two things. One, it lets us know how we're doing. If I slept poorly last night, I can look at it and say, my heart rate was up, my heart rate variability was here. What happened? Oh yeah, well, someone came by and wanted me to go out and to the magic show on Monday night. We went over to the brewery, and I was there until 8 o'clock, and it kind of disrupted everything. But I can see the effects of that. It also is motivating, because I look at it and I say, I made my goal for the day. So every day I have an exercise goal of at least 30 minutes. And on some days I cheat and I say, okay, I'll count that walk as my exercise, because I don't feel like going to the gym or doing anything hard today. And I'll give myself that day off. But I'll tell you this, fatigue comes from lack of exercise for me. The day after a good exercise, I feel great. I just feel I have boundless energy as a result of exercising. It's not a fatigue type thing to me. And I think if you have proper nutrition, sleep, and exercise with moderation, you'll have boundless energy. I know a lot of people who live with severe fatigue, and I ask them what they're doing exercise wise, and they're not.
So there's two things I want to point out with what you just said. We need to listen to our bodies, because not every day is going to be the same. So as you mentioned, on Sundays, you take your rest days. That's so important. Listen to how you're feeling and make those adjustments. The second thing is what is so important for a healthy life: sleep, food, exercise. And that's one thing that we really need to, as you just said, is I'm going to point out the cycle of activity and the cycle of inactivity. As you mentioned, that every time you exercise, you feel a little bit better. You might feel a little less breathless when you do daily activities. And that's what we really want to focus on when you start an exercise program. If you're sedentary, what's happening is that you feel breathless because you have a lung condition. It's scary to want to exercise because you know that's going to make you feel more breathless. As a result, you're not going to exercise, you stay on the couch, your breathlessness is just going to get worse, your lung condition is just going to get worse. And that's the cycle of inactivity. Now, you broke that and you reversed it. So now you're in the cycle of activity. Every exercise you do, you're strengthening your body, you're making those muscles more efficient, you're utilizing your oxygen better. You're just going to feel better the next day and the next time you exercise. So you're reversing that cycle, which is exactly what is supposed to happen. And it's incredible to hear that you've gone from really a whole 180 here, where you were said 11 months you were kind of in this dark depressive state, but now look at you, you have the structured day, going for walks, going on hikes, paddleboarding, swimming, going to the gym. You've reversed that completely. So that's very inspiring to hear. Let's see, what is there other things that you want to touch on about staying motivated and keeping active? I know that feeling of feeling better the next day, you said, helps you stay motivated. Is there anything else that you can kind of give to our audience that might inspire somebody to start or keep going?
Yeah. Well, we've talked about other things to do, a lot of that. Common problems. I talk to, in addition to my support group, my book precipitates a lot of discussions with people, as well as some of the support groups on Facebook that I connect with people through, and as well as Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation. But I talk to a lot of people on a weekly basis, and there's some common problems I see and hear from people who, some of them have a much milder form of this disease than I do, but their weakness and fatigue, oftentimes that's a side effect of the medication they're on, and so they have to battle through that. But I had a great physician on a webinar we did a couple of weeks ago who said, you got to make a choice on lifestyle, having a quality of life. And so she talks with her patients about, the medications that they can prescribe, but the impact of the side effects. And if that just really gives a deleterious effect on their quality of life, then let's dial it back.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to live like that? So weakness and fatigue, lack of hope and vision, finding that. And like you said, Amanda, it can change. The reason, my purpose, mine's changed a bunch of times. When I started finding something to get out of ourselves is very important for me. I started with Salvation Army, volunteering in the food kitchen for homeless people. And I learned about hospice and got trained as a hospice volunteer. And that was amazing. Sitting in a hospice house is where I wrote most of my book, A Matter of Life and Breath. On Sunday mornings, I had a 4-hour shift at a hospice facility where I would work with the families and folks like that. But it was quiet time. And sitting there, it was very ironic, though, for me, that I sat and wrote a book in a place in a hospice house that 18 months before, I thought that's where my next step was. I thought I was going to the hospice house. So it's a very fulfilling experience to write and publish that. And know that we don't have to go there prematurely always. So the last few things I see for people, a lot of people pass their time focused on moving from one doctor appointment to the next. I've got 2 doctor's appointments this week. They say I got to go to this doctor, and then I got to do these tests, and they're just really slogging from one place to the next with no end in sight. It's really sad. And in the meantime, it's eating away any time they have to do, to exercise and become stronger. So, main tip I have for them is when you get to the doctor's office, stand up, don't sit down.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need waiting rooms with chairs. The worst thing we do is sit down all day. And so when you go to the doctor's office, you've just driven an hour to get there. Sitting in a car, you walk in, they say, have a seat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
not sit. Done enough of that. That's kind of that's kind of some of the things I see. The other thing is I see is atrophied breathing muscles. When we're sitting on in a recliner after diagnosis, it's really easy just to depend. I depend on oxygen. I use it all the time. I exercise with an oxygen tank on my back, and that's my superpower. All right, I'm the only guy in the gym. You see this big, nice gym. Only guy in the gym that uses an oxygen tank, and but I can do what people half my age and without lung problems can do because of that. So using that oxygen tank is very important. If you just use it though to sit there, what happens is you breathe shallow, and it fills your lungs with enough air to keep you saturated, and your breathing muscles, your intercostal rib muscles, all get tighter and tighter and more sunken. That's what happened to me. I had an architectural distortion of my lung from failing to breathe deeply, and so that's why every day, twice a day, for the last 2 years, I do a set of breathing exercises that stretch my muscles all around my lungs and my back, my sides. And it's critical to do those things. That's the kind of stuff that your website has for people that can help them.
Absolutely. And that's what myself and iMaster Health is focused on, is practicing those proper breathing techniques, not just during a period of doing the technique for 5 minutes throughout the day, but as we're exercising. It's very important to get that breath and engage our diaphragm, get the breath deep in our diaphragm so that you're going to feel that abdomen push out. And the reason for that is, just as you said, is we're not using our chest and our shoulder muscles to get that breath in and out. That's what shallow breathing is. And that can cause desaturation because we're not getting that oxygen deep into our lungs where that transport is happening. So one thing I do want to point out is just the accessibility of pulmonary rehab. You mentioned earlier that you didn't want to go to the hospital or the in-person facility, so you were looking for online solutions or house solutions, having that trainer come to your home. So that is one of the main reasons why iMaster Health was created, was to make sure that pulmonary rehab, fitness, education, breathing tailored to lung conditions is accessible and available for people when they need it, where they need it. And just as you said, like, we're focused on making accessible no matter the financial situation you're in, where we offer a free program. We offer more resources for the paid programs as well, because we need to continue adding to the platform. And one of the biggest things is just making sure that there is a solution to those barriers, whether it's transportation, whether it's cost of getting to the program, if it's in person. But I do want to point out that there is a huge benefit if you're able to make it to an in-person facility in a hospital, to take advantage of that, because you have that personalization. We offer personalization with iMaster Health, but being able to speak to the nurse right beside you is very important, and monitoring those oxygen levels as well, and also having the support group in person. But as you said, it needs to be more than 2 times a week. That's how you're going to see those benefits and increase. You can see a plateau sometimes, but we want to also increase and get better and prevent the progression of the condition. So anyways, I just wanted to point out that we offer the online program. We want it to be complementary to an in-person program, but then also as a maintenance program for people who have graduated from an in-person program where they need some support throughout the rest of their years, because that's what fitness should be about. It's a lifestyle change. It's not an 8-week fix. We need to make sure that's available and accessible at all times. But Lee, thank you so much for all of the wonderful tips, advice that you have provided. I think that somebody listening who might be dealing with pulmonary fibrosis, or they know somebody who be dealing with pulmonary fibrosis, this is a great conversation to listen to know where to start, to give some tips and motivation to keep going with an exercise journey and structuring their day and making sure that every day is a new day, that you're feeling a little bit better. There's going to be off days. You need to listen to your body, but just a great motivator in general. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, Lee, before?
No, I think we've covered a lot here, and maybe we'll do a round 2 one day in the future and dive into something of detail based on what your patients need. And anyway, thanks so much for having me here today. as I love what you're doing there with your program, and it's certainly needed by lots of folks. So thank you for this time today.
Thank you so much, Lee. And for anybody who is interested in Lee's book, A Matter of Life and Breath, it is available on Amazon, and we will link that the link for the book in the description notes. And it offers so many great tips and tricks on how you overcame this, or you're living with this condition, going from 20% lung function to what you're doing right now. So we'll link that there for anybody who's interested. But thank you so much, Lee, for your time and for all of your experiences and for sharing that. It is much appreciated.
My pleasure. Thank you.